Hello, Bookedlings, friends. Welcome to the next episode of Booked. I keep saying next as if it's happening later. Welcome to this episode of Booked. I'm joined today by my lovely guest, Michael Merriam. How are you doing today?
Hanging in there, doing all right. I'm here. I'm glad to be here. Happy to be here. And yeah, I was actually just bopping to the intro.
It's a good intro, right? My nephew wrote it. I'm very proud. I love it very much. Also, I'd just like to say, Grant, I was like 3 seconds late. He's so cheeky. You're so cheeky. I'm going to start 2 seconds early when I interview Grant. I've decided. So cheeky. So we've got some people that have joined us already today. So thank you so much to everyone that's joined us so far. So we have Ellen Holmes, organizer of the Small Spec Book Awards, of which you were a semi-finalist. Congratulations on that. We've also got Sarah. I'm going to highlight the fact that you said that Holmes was your favourite, and I am offended. And we've also got Grant, who's already started sassing me. And yeah, that's great so far. Hello, everyone. So, thank you so much for joining me today. It's so nice to finally get to this point. I remember months and months and months ago when I was creating your author feature on idiosyncrasy. It literally feels like a year ago, and it may well have been.
Who knows? Time is meaningless right now. It really,
It really is. It's just okay. Which fresh hell is this? Whenever I wake up,
right.
and then
Every day I'm like,
it's like I go to bed.
oh, well, the hells persist, but so do I. So here we go.
Exactly. That is the vibe today. So, who are you, Michael? Can you tell us a little bit about you and your background? Because you are a creative of all sorts.
Right. Yeah. I absolutely resisted the. Whenever people ask me who I am, I usually break out in Les Miserables, and so I did not do that. I did not give you that. I'm Jean Valjean. So yeah. So hi, I'm Michael Merriam, and I'm a little all over the place as well. I Yeah, I'm a writer. Obviously, because I had the book.
Mhm.
I've been doing that for a number of years. I've also been an actor. I'm still a professional stage storyteller. In another life, I was an award-winning poet. I do have a day job, which is utterly boring and tedious. Um, but but yeah, that's I always tell people go, when did you sell your first piece for actual real money? And I was like, I sold a haiku for $5 in 1975. I was 10, and I've been chasing that high ever since. So a
Oh, that's so wholesome.
little tiny Michael, this little $10. I don't know. I'm sure I blew it on junk, but because I was 10.
Your
But
first paycheck. That's very exciting.
well,
Um,
exactly. I got paid. So
exactly, which is more than a lot of writers are able to say. So that's pretty impressive at that age. So I can so tell that you've been chasing that high because you do so much. You have a huge back catalogue of short stories.
Mhm.
You've also got many books that I've seen. You've got your Six Guns and Sorcery novellas. I've just
Mhm.
started reading one of them, and forgive my pronunciation because my mouth is always full of spaghetti. But Terra at Tierra de Cobra. If
Pretty
I
close.
if I've pronounced that incorrectly, please do correct me.
Cobra, but it's okay. Cobra. So
I
you're
tried.
fine. Yeah, you're
Tried.
fine.
I can
You're
barely
fine.
speak English, but I've really been enjoying
Well,
it so far. It's a lot of fun and it's very fast paced, which I appreciate. I love a novella. It's like my favorite form of storytelling because it's not. I get enough from
mhm.
it, like meat wise,
Right.
but I'm not like, oh my god, just get on with it.
Just okay. Gosh, yeah, that is my, as a writer,
Mhm,
novella is kind of my natural length, actually.
mhm,
Um, I keep trying to, and I still write short stories from time to time, but a lot of times I'm writing a short story and I'm going along and I'm going along and I'm going along and I'm like, and we're now over 10,000 words. So do I have 25,000 more? Let's just see. And so it is my natural length, which is part of why I also write stage plays and screenplays because
mhm,
those are actually the same kind of gooey gel area. It's
mhm,
about the same amount of work.
mm.
So yeah.
So do you? So you went from poetry, and obviously went into acting and screenwriting and all that sort of stuff. What was the progression like for you? How did you stumble into this multifaceted thing?
Oh God. Oh, okay. So yeah, the poetry, and so then I kept chasing that high, but then I got into acting. Like
Mm,
I didn't sell another piece until the '80s, I guess '90s maybe.
mhm.
I don't know. I'd have to go look. Um, but then I got into acting as a late teen and early 20s. I was in a rockabilly band in Texas, down there where you live.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was a thing. It was great. It was a lot of work, frankly. Let's just be honest. But yeah, I did that for a while, and then I discovered that I didn't like driving around in Southwest, Oklahoma, Texas, New
Mhm.
Mexico, Arizona, with four other guys in a Ford Econoline. It just really got tedious after a while, and then, so I did studio musician work. I moved back to Oklahoma and did studio musician work for a little bit,
Mhm.
and then I don't, life goes through phases, and
Mm.
I stepped that away, but then I had a practice marriage. I'm married to my second wife and have been now for nigh on 30 years. And
Oh,
so we're doing something correct. Um, she hasn't smothered me in my sleep yet, so we're doing something right.
yet.
Um, yeah, yet. Um, so yeah, that's just been kind of the progression. And then I tinkered with short fiction. I'd gotten back into writing poetry, and it was mainstream poetry, and lit mags and all that lovely stuff,
Mhm.
and which is absolutely pays nothing, as we know. Copies, I still have yellowed copies of old magazines,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, and then I started poking at writing short stories, and then um, I have an eye disease. My eye disease is retinitis pigmentosa, and it's a progressive eye disease, and I'm legally blind.
Mhm.
Um, and so for a while, I'm back in the workforce, but for a while I was out of the main workforce, and I was like, well, this seems like a good time to do this, follow up on this. So I started writing, working on short stories and submitting short stories because I'm old enough that the received wisdom was still you write short stories, you build a name, you get attention. That's all wrong, but it's
Yeah.
all utterly wrong. And I tell baby writers now, if you want to write novels, write novels.
Mhm.
Don't don't write short stories.
Mhm.
I love the form, but I also have feels about where it is. So if you want to write novels, write novels. If you want to write screenplays, write screenplays.
Mhm.
Do that thing. And of course, then they look at me and go, "What do you do?" I don't know. I can't decide. I wrote a novella. I'm working on a 10-minute screenplay. So I'm all over the place.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Right, exactly, exactly. Don't necessarily follow my career path, but
No, I think I've heard a lot of advice around if you are wanting to expand your skill set in terms of writing and being able to write more succinctly or to be able to increase your skill with like dialogue, for instance, doing things like writing scripts or writing poetry can be a helpful tool to help you to
Mhm.
structure how you write. But
Right.
yeah, I mean everybody that I speak to has a totally different pathway or gateway into stuff. The most common one is during COVID I was bored and I thought I may as well start writing. But you know what? I'm so glad that this whole like generation of storytellers has been born out of something so horrible.
Yes.
Which is very cool. But
Yeah.
a lot of
Make
them still
something good
finding
of
that
something
peak.
horrible. Yeah.
But say that again, sorry.
Make something good out of something horrible.
Well, this is it because like life is unless you're really, 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 really privileged, you're going to go
Mhm.
through some hardship in your life, and if you can use this tool to get through it and make something of it, then it's definitely something worth doing. Not everybody
Mhm.
wants to write, and that's totally fine. But it seems like everybody I know is writing a book. But it's cool because I'm like, okay, well, they might not achieve the thing that they want to achieve, or they might get some reality checks along the way. I certainly friggin' did. But yeah, it's nice to see something like it's nice to see art being produced, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Because there are, and I'm going to be really vague about this because I don't like talking about politics on the show, but in a time when access to books and education is being stripped away, I want us to keep putting more stuff out there. We need to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And I'm just so pleased to see so many people doing it. So, I mean, you've contributed like tenfold and lots of different things, which is very cool to see.
I've also been at it for an awful long time too, but so way before COVID started, so so it's funny because we're such weird, fragile little creatures as artists. We like I from the outside, I look at my career and I'm like, wow, that's a thing. That's a really but on the inside, there isn't a day go by that I don't feel like a little bit of a fraud, and the imposter syndrome. I'm actually an imposter, but I've got you guys fooled. So
this is it. It's working. You're a fantastic actor. Do you know what? It's something that I think most people experience is the whole imposter syndrome thing. And I think if you don't experience it at least once, then I wonder what part about the process you care about the most.
Right.
Because I think people that care deeply about how their work is perceived because they care about it so much, then you're going to be filled with doubt at different periods of the process. Absolutely. It happens to me when I'm not even doing anything. Sometimes I'll just sit there and go, what, oh God, what am I doing?
Why am I even here? No. And I try, I do a lot of networking locally in the Twin Cities with other writers of all genres and ilks. We have very strong writing community up here. Lots of science fiction fantasy authors from Hugo award-winning big names like Lois McMaster Bujold to mid-listers to indies to small press to people who are just still kind of trying to find their footing. And we've got them in mysteries, we have them in romance. Like literally, one block from my house is Dreamhaven, which is a science fiction fantasy horror specialty bookstore. And two blocks further down is Tropes and Trifles, which is a romance specialty bookstore. And I could walk to any number of other ones fairly easily.
Wow.
And I'm not even in the middle of things. It's just that there's a lot of readers in this county. So
you are making me want to move there.
It's a great city. I love this city so much.
I can't live anywhere here.
No, I've lived where you live. We talked before the show, and I lived in Oklahoma and Texas, and they're just not walkable. They're just not, and they have their charms, and their rattlesnakes, and their tarantulas, and whatever else, but they tend to not be very walkable communities if they're in the size. Some of the more mid-sized ones, I lived in a town in Oklahoma called Weatherford, and it was fairly walkable for a town of about 12,000 people. It had a regional university and good sidewalks, and you didn't have to walk along the side of the highway to get from one to the post office, which I have had to do in places where I've lived. So,
yeah, I miss public transport very much, but yes. So I wondered what your day looks like, and I guess it's going to change day to day. And I know you said that you've got your day job, but creatively speaking, like how often do you work on something? Is it a daily thing? Is it a weekly thing? How do you fit it in?
It has changed and morphed and progressed over the years. When I was like right after my vision fell into the legally blind category. I went to a vocational rehab school to learn how to function without being able to see stuff. And so when I wasn't in school, I had a lot of time. And so I lived by the 1,000 words a day, button chair, every day rule. And as I got older and things changed and the job I have now, for example, takes a little more out of me.
Mhm.
It's not a full 9 to 5. I get off at like 3 o'clock, interestingly enough, and with the show. And but what I try to do is I try to make at least one evening every week, one weeknight evening that is mine.
Mhm.
And I'm out here on my sun porch in my house here in Minneapolis, and I come out here and I hide um, and do some writing, and then I try to make sure on Saturday or Sunday
Mhm.
that I take a lot of time to do some writing, and then I also tuck in like we don't like to talk about the business of it, but there's a business into it,
Mhm.
you know, and I try to tuck in some business in time. So yeah, used to I would be like, oh, I must write 1,000 words every day, blah blah blah. And one thing I found out that I'm actually kind of a slow writer.
Mm.
So now I'm like, if I get 1,000 words a week, I'm like, go me, which is again why the novella style works so well for me as a storyteller. And I can get stuff done and not be like,
Mhm.
uh, yes, having lung functioning after medical incident is so difficult. Well, and honestly, that, and then uh, my wife and I were in a car accident in 2017,
My God.
and we were rear-ended, and I was on my way to Dreamhaven, this little store I told you about. I was on my way there to do a reading,
Mhm.
and we were leaving from my wife's work, and we got rear-ended, and we got hit really hard,
Oh.
and so we exchanged information with the other driver, and we all went our separate ways. And what we should have done was gone to urgent care or emergency care. And what we did is we went to Dreamhaven, and I did that reading show, and it's recorded, and I can look at it, and I can go, "Oh man, I was a complete mess." Like, oh gosh. And I can look at storytelling shows after that and go,
Mhm.
oh, I'm a little bit of a mess until about 2 years later. It was about 2019 before I started really feeling like I was back in command of like performing and back in command of
Mm.
writing, doing readings and doing panels at conventions. So yeah, as the person said, the medical incident, that concussion, I still have problems staying on home row when I'm typing. Like I'll
Mm.
be typing along, blah, 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 and then I'll look up and I'm like, I have just typed, you know, 12 lines of gobbledygook because I'm shifted over to it and didn't realize it.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
but you work with what you've got.
Well, that's
And
it. Humans are pretty good at adapting.
we really are. We really, really are.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. We all bounce back pretty well, but it doesn't make it any easier. It's still horrendous.
no, no, I had talked to another writer friend here locally and performer
Mhm.
who had gone through something similar. I was talking to him about, the struggle post accident with the concussion and everything, and
Mhm.
he was like, "Oh yeah, it took a while for me to be able." He had gotten, I don't remember what the nature of the injury was, but he had also gotten a major concussion, and yeah, it's just you just got to kind of work your way back.
Mhm.
There's a lovely writer here in town, Kelly Barnhill, who is a Newbery Award winning, young adult and middle grade writer,
Mhm.
and she fell. She was jogging and she slipped on the ice like one does here in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And she fell and she hit her head. And there's a lovely article that she wrote out there about not being sure she'll actually be able to write fiction again because she can't keep her thoughts ordered. And
That's
it was in the
sad.
New York Times. It's terrible. And Kelly's a lovely, lovely human being.
Mm.
And I hope that she does find her voice again because her voice is fantastic. If you haven't read any of her work,
Mm.
you should. But
Yeah, I'll
I read
definitely
everything.
know.
So
Oh, that's really sad. Well, I'm hoping that she's able to get back on the horse again.
I
And
hope so.
it's such a good exercise,
Mhm.
writing, for recovery and for just keeping yourself a bit sharp as well.
Mhm.
My great grandma, she died at 101, I think,
Wow.
and she wrote a small amount, but she wrote in her diary every single day from like
Wow.
when she was a kid. And we found all these diaries, and she'd just written a little bit about what had happened in that day. And
Oh yeah.
she was a voracious reader. She read
Mhm.
books and books and books and books and books every week. And it was usually like that, like romancy, wistfully old lady stuff. But she read every day. She used to do crosswords and Sudoku and things like that. And I maintain that she didn't really like lose it until just a few years till the end. And she just did phenomenally well. And she lived on shortbread biscuits and sugary milky coffee. And that's all she ate. But she lived to over 100. So keep writing and keep reading because it will help. I'm confident.
Cookies and sugary coffee. I'm okay. I can do that.
There was this one time. So my grandma and my great grandma lived together for a long time. And my grandma's dog Jarvis, who passed away recently, she'd go away and visit family, and then Kit, my great grandma, would stay with the dog, and she would have her friends come over and just check on her, just to make sure she was doing okay. And they were there, and she'd put a bunch of shortbread biscuits in the dog's bowl. And when they caught her, she just went, shh. She was fabulous. She was fabulous. She really was an icon. She was an icon. Yeah, fantastic woman. But yes, she was a reader, and her and my grandma both are readers, and it definitely, like, they read constantly, and I think that definitely influenced me in terms of my love of like stories and just enjoying the written word, because I've seen these people do really well as they've gotten much, much older, and I definitely credit reading to one of those as being one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's one of those things that keeps you mentally nimble and mentally sharp. You're not being, I mean, and nothing against television and movies, because I'm trying to get into that industry as well. But you are being fed is the thing, and you've got a book or your Kindle or whatever, and a lot of it is going on up here in your head. It's really all going on up here in your head. You're translating what printed ink on paper into images and whatever in your head, however you imagine it work. Some people don't see images, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so I think that is a thing that can really help keep people sharp and nimble is so much reading.
Definitely. And audiobooks as well, because it's still an ocular thing. Not an ocular, that's your eyes. What am I doing?
You're okay.
But audio, that's a different thing.
You're very close to each other, aren't they? They're so very close.
They're really close. So either way, I think it's similar enough to be helpful. Oh, we've got Rod that's just joined us. Hello, Rod Gilly. How you doing? So I did have a question for you that I don't know if is a stupid question, but I'm going to ask you anyway, because I'm not scared about asking stupid questions. When you come up with a story and you want to put it down somewhere, do you find that you're spoiled for choice as to what form that'll take? As in, like, will that be a screenplay, or will it be poetry, or whatever form it's going to go into? Do you already know what it's going to do, or do you have to kind of pick and figure out where it's going to sit?
So well, yeah, okay, that's actually, that's a great question.
Oh, thank you.
It's a great question. So with poetry, because I'm still writing poetry, I don't write it as much as I used to, but I'm still doing it. It tends to be very spontaneous. Like a lot of times, the first draft of it will just appear, and I've got it, and I write it down. And like so many writers, I tend to carry notebooks and pens around with me, little small pocket notebooks and stuff. And those tend to happen very quickly. Like I'll get a series of lines and just get those down, and then I can work with it and build on it from there. So it's very fast for me when it comes to poetry. When I am writing stage plays or screenplays, it's very purposeful. I am like, what do I want to write about? What do I want to say to this audience that I'm going to be, talking to? And I've got, like I think most writers, I've got a giant idea folder. I'm never going to get to all of this. But it is a little more purpose. It's a little less spontaneous. A lot of times short fiction was more spontaneous for me than longer fiction, for example. I would just I would have a line, you know, and just start from there. Um, with the Six Guns and Sorcery series, the novellas, I'm doing a lot of interrogating, and so it's fairly purposeful.
Mm.
Excuse me. When I'm writing the westerns, I'm interrogating that myth of the West, while also, adding a horrific element to it.
Mhm.
Here's a monster. Um, here's your cosmic horror creature. And when I am writing on the more Victoriana steampunk end, I am still interrogating. I'm interrogating the history of colonialism and all the things that come with that.
Mhm.
Um, so 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 it's very purposeful. I mean, and I'm not going to knock anybody who is just deeply into slap some gears on it and have fun, but but as a writer, I have to look at it. I have to think about, okay, but what does this really mean?
Mm.
What and so in both those cities, there's a lot of purposeful thinking about what are the lies we were taught, what are the myths we were taught, and how do I point those out a
Mm.
little bit, you know. Um, I always tell people I got a lot of the way I am and the way I think because of fiction.
Mm.
You know, reading uh, Tolkien, for example, is a really good example. I got a lot of the way I approach the world from the way these characters approach the world, and so I kind of feel like there's a little bit of a duty, to approach the world in the same way, to thoughtfully. And of course, that doesn't mean that every once in a while I don't just rip off something that's just utter absolute fun, or can do both. There's a lot of can do both.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be heavy and dry and oh my God, we're all very sad that this happened. Yes, we're all very sad that this happened, but we're also here to be entertained as well. And
Mhm.
so how do I keep those two? It's the thing of keeping two things that are a little different, but holding them both in your head. And then,
Mm.
there's going to be a little cognitive dissonance here and there.
Mhm.
But like there are so many things, especially having grown up uh, in the remains of the American West, in Western Oklahoma, in North Central and West Texas for a while.
Mhm.
Um, there's still so much of that mythology um, embedded in culture there. And then, of course, John Ford and John Wayne made it even worse, frankly. There's so much wrong, so
Mhm.
much wrong, uh, so much, so very much.
So, do you often start with the messaging before you figure out the method that you're going to get to it with, or
No,
no?
no. A lot of times, what I'm starting with, especially in long fiction like novellas and novels, is characters.
Mhm.
That's where I start,
Okay.
um, because that's what really interests me the most is
Mm.
characters. Um, and so the characters will take me places, and then a lot of times, okay, so my wife is a therapist, and
Oh, very cool.
she will sometimes, when I'm talking to her about these things, I'm bouncing ideas off of her. She will be like, "What do you think that's because blah 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 as a kid and you were raised blah 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 and blah blah blah." And I'm like, stop it, stop it, stop it."
Free therapy, though. I mean,
And she's right. Yeah, she's absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that's because you were a feral Gen X kid wandering around through the remains of the American West all on your own? I'm like, uh, maybe, yeah, maybe, I don't know.
please don't perceive me like that.
Oh, stop.
That's so funny. That's hilarious. But it must be helpful in a way.
Yeah, yeah, because she does have a lot of insights, and in a lot of ways, like she's on the cover of one of the books,
Mhm.
because we do a lot of we don't anymore because we moved away from the place where it was, but we used to a lot of times we would We would go down to the Chinese buffet place, get Chinese buffet,
Mm-hmm.
and then talk about what each of us was working on and bounce, ideas off of each other. And so, yeah, super, super duper, super duper. It's super helpful to have a partner who digs what you do. You know, I have known far too many other writers, mostly women, sadly, whose partners didn't dig what they do or didn't understand it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard on their careers and a detriment. Um, I realize that that I am working a little bit from a place of privilege, as a white dude. Um, so because I will tell people I know other writers, most of them women, who are better writers than I am, whose careers stopped and stalled, and it's
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't get the support they needed, and that's a sad and frustrating thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it makes a huge difference to have people around you, if whether they're your partner or they're your family or just your chosen family or friends, whoever. Having just at least one person that's there going, you can do it, or I'll listen to you if you need to talk or whatever, is invaluable. It's invaluable.
yeah.
Um, Something that I said, I'm pretty sure it was the last episode. I'm doing so many of these at the moment. They're all blended in.
You are really pumping them out, by the way. I'm watching this schedule of yours, and I'm like, oof, glad that's
I don't know
done.
what I'm doing. I'm just doing it, and people are turning up, so that's fine. No, it's because, just real quick, it's because there were so many authors that asked to come on the show. I thought if I do 3 a week for a while, I'll get them all out of the way, and then
There
everyone's
you go.
looked at and seen and spoken to. Because what I don't want is for, like last time, where people had to wait an entire year to come on this little show that has like 6 people watching it. It's really like, anyway. I just want people to feel seen. That's my whole thing. Whether they want it or not. I can't remember what I was going to talk about. Oh yeah, finding your community and finding family and things like that. So they're super, super helpful. And as I said, I think it was the last episode, it's really easy to find the assholes. Very easy. They're
Oh yeah,
everywhere. They're
they're
all
everywhere.
over the place. I see them
Right.
daily. Um,
Yeah,
Ignore them.
yeah.
If you don't like them, block them, mute them, stay away from them.
Yeah. I use the block button very liberally.
Me too.
I'm like,
I prefer
no,
them
don't
mute.
respond to this person. Just block.
Yeah.
Just block. Yeah. 'Cause I'm like, we obviously perceive reality differently. So,
Oh, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah. I get why people do get into arguments and things like
mhm.
that, because some people are naturally like that, but I'm very like averse to arguing with people because I haven't got the energy for it. Sometimes I
Right.
think it's not worth it. I'll fight for the things I really believe in, but that takes it
Right.
out of me. So I reserve my energy for like the important
Right.
stuff.
Right.
But petty stuff is ridiculous. So you can find really nice people. There are such good people in this
Oh
community. And there's been a lot of negative stuff around the writing community in general, and people observing that it is a particularly toxic place to be. But I do think it depends on who you talk to. I really do.
yeah.
I know some fantastic people. Some of the best friends that I've ever made have been in this community because I don't want to speak to the arseholes.
Right. It's like sometimes other writers will approach me and they'll be like, "So what do you think about the blah 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 that's going down at the blah blah blah?" And I'm like, "The what? I don't know any of those people. Like, who?
Yeah. It's
No, I'm okay not knowing." So
this is that's hilarious. I do you know what, my husband said something yesterday, and he said I would hate to get into an argument online with a writer because they know so many more words and they can use them as weapons. I said, do you know what? The amount of writers that I've seen arguing that don't actually know how to spell is more surprising to me.
it is amazing, and I freely admit that sometimes I will be like, "Wait, Oh no, I sent that," and now I see all the typos in it.
Yeah.
But it's like I send a manuscript, like, and then I'm looking at it later. I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh.
It's okay.
And
It's part of the process. It's totally
it's part of
fine.
the process.
That's what editing's for.
Mhm.
And Grant, I've already said this. I can't get a clone because the world couldn't take it. We have a question. We have a question coming in. So,
I'm always interested in two questions.
Bill Bodden, awesome name by the way. What about the Weird West holds so much appeal for you?
So like I said earlier, as a feral Gen X kid, I guess I grew up in those places where there is still a lot of the trappings, a lot of the thought. My grandfather uh, was in the last mounted cavalry unit in the United States,
Wow.
like fighting horse unit, not a ceremonial unit. There are still
Mhm.
ceremonial units. So he could seriously sit a horse and ride a horse. I lived in this tiny, tiny, tiny little town with this guy. His name was Marshall Rich, and I thought his first name was Marshall for the longest time, and then I found out no, he was a retired deputy U.S. Marshal for Oklahoma Territory.
Brilliant.
Yeah, this really old bugger, and he and my grandfather, of course, became fast friends. Why wouldn't they? But so there is that, and like I said, I like to interrogate the mythology of the West that we have built up. The lone gunman. So much of the mythology of the West comes from movies and also from its literature. To be honest with the lone gunman is just the wandering Ronin samurai, um, that sort of thing. And the reality of the situation is yes, it was wild and dangerous at times. And then as soon as people started to settle in a place, one of the first things that towns would do, especially if they had built a church and a school or two,
Hmm.
is you couldn't actually bring your guns into town. You had to check them with the marshal. So, this wandering, everybody's swaggering around town with a 6 gun on their hip. I can go into the gear too, but that we don't need to get that deeply into it. But that is for the most part a giant myth, except for some really lawless places like some of the gold and silver rush towns like Bodie and places like that.
Hmm.
But for the most part, as soon as you started building churches and schools, you wanted safety and law and order.
Hmm.
And part of that was you didn't want drunk cowboys coming in, blowing their pay. You wanted them to come in and blow their pay on on frankly whiskey and prostitutes, but you didn't want them shooting your town up. Right, everybody's got to make a living.
All
You
right.
didn't you didn't want them shooting your town up. Was the thing. And so yeah, that was one of the first things that went.
Hmm.
Um, there were like I think maybe two recorded actual gunfights where the two men squared off like you always see in TV and movies.
Hmm.
That's never how it went. Most of those fights were with knives because you checked your gun, but you didn't have to check your knife. So there was a lot of knife fights
Hmm.
in the old West. So I like to take that, and then I like to add a horrific element to it or a strange element to it. Tierra de Clobre is uh, the antagonist creature in that she is a creature from that part of the world.
Mm.
Um, she's a siren-esque monster from that part of the world. Who I love the stuff. I have the concept for it, but I'm like, but what is my antagonist? I know what my antagonist needs to be able to do, but
Hmm.
and so I'm researching. I'm like, oh my gosh, there she is, right there in that part of the world. It's perfect. It's so perfect. Uh, or one of the other books in the series, Not Enough Midnights. We have a very much snake god in a mountain who is very much a riff on the Curse of Yid.
Hmm.
Um, and because what I didn't realize was that in the story The Mound, which is one of Lovecraft's stories,
Hmm.
was set in Binger, Oklahoma. I lived in the town next to Binger, Oklahoma. It would have been a lot cooler to have lived in the middle of nowhere in Binger, Oklahoma, had I known this when I was living in that part of the world. And so I'm like, ooh, but it's a part of the world that I know really intimately and deeply, and I know the people, and I know the history, and I understand it. So adding that, taking that and running with it.
Hmm.
Um, the first weird western I wrote in this series, horror called Springs. I tell people it's basically Alien in a ghost town with a steampunk aesthetic in the American West. Yeah, it sells itself. Yeah, you know,
So,
yeah, yeah. A group of travelers break down in a city that is a town that has been basically wiped out by a monster, but the monster can't get out of the town's perimeter because magic, and they can't get away,
Mhm.
and here we are. Yeah.
And
So
which book was that again?
that is called Heart Cold Springs. It is out of print. It's in Charming Mayhem.
Okay.
The four older books, two of which are long out of print. They were with a small press publisher that is no
Mhm.
more. Um, and then the next two I indie published, and then this last one, this fifth one, Terror, is with a small press publisher.
Mhm.
And so it's I've had I've had the experience of basically working at every level because I was a hardcore author
Mhm.
for a couple of books, and then small presses. Not all small presses are built equal. Fortunately, I'm with a really good one right now.
Yeah, they seem
Um,
fantastic.
oh, yeah, well, they've been around. Like they just celebrated their ninth anniversary, which is
Wow, that's
it's
so
like
cool.
100 or something. Small presses come and go,
Mhm.
and and yeah, then I've done the indie publishing where you have to hire it all done yourself, or find your friends who are professional editors and be like,
Please.
I will do you a favor down the road to be named later. So, so
Fantastic.
that's then you're mowing somebody's lawn, whatever. But
You've got to do what you've got to do. It's a hustle, honestly.
it is awesome. It
Mhm.
is awesome. So,
So, rumor is you're an excellent short story writer as well, says Ellen Holmes. I am going to pop the QR code for your website, and you have links, I think, to everything that you've published in your bibliography. I'll also put the link in the chat, and it should be in the description of the episode too, if anybody would like to check those out. Got another question.
rumor is, yeah. I suspect that's because I entered a story in the StarCraft Creatives contest.
Mhm.
Uh, um, because I just happened to have the exact right story sitting around.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, a lot of short fiction over the years, and there's some absolute joys in being a short fiction writer,
Mhm.
and it does teach you a lot. Like early in my career, I wrote, and I'll just say it. Early in my career, I did a lot of workman like work where I would take the base formula. There's a character, they are in a place, they have a problem, they try to solve the problem, they fail,
Mhm.
they try to solve the problem again. They either fail or do, depending on what sort of story you're writing, and then
Mhm.
there's a little bit more and you're done. And I wrote a lot of stories just to that beat, just to get the feel of that beat, just to understand the rules. Because I'm a firm believer you can't start breaking the rules until you understand the
Mhm.
rules.
Yeah.
Um, but I wrote a lot of space opera to that
Hmm.
back in the day, and I might go back to writing space opera at some point. The Queen of Swords is trying to get a science fiction or space opera book out of me, and I'm like, well, okay, I'll see what I can do. But I'm working on another thing right now, and I'm very slow. I'm a very slow writer. I'm a very slow person.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You got to do it at the pace that you're comfortable.
Right,
You shouldn't let anyone that's listening or watching. Your speed is your
right,
speed. You don't
right.
need to compare to anybody. Um, just going back to asking for favors in exchange for editing services, Grant has said that he'll service anyone's aircraft for favors. I don't know what kind of favors you want, if they're related
I'm
to
so
writing.
proud.
No soliciting services in this chat, please, Grant.
Oh, wow. I think you overestimate the income of most of us authors out here that we're going to have an airplane.
Yeah.
The closest I am going to get to an airplane besides getting on one at the airport, the guy who owned this house before us, Walter, was a pilot, and he was a civil aviation pilot. He was not an airline pilot. And so out in my garage are all these pictures of all these airplanes, and I've just left them because they're gorgeous.
That's cool.
And he went and did this. So that's as close as I'm ever going to get to having an airplane. So I really can't. I can't. I can't. I mean, I can't help you. Sorry. So
Okay. Do you know what? It's worth offering because you never know. I
you
do
never
have
know.
a question from Rod, but I will just I'd like to highlight that Sarah says that you seem like the genuinely most nice person ever.
That's
Which is
very, very, very
I
sweet. Thank you.
I agree with her. So Rod asks,
Okay.
are you a fan of Lewis L'Amour? If that's how.
So okay, here we go. Um, whew, I have read. I'm pretty sure everything Louis L'Amour wrote. Like I think I have read the entire oeuvre. I can pretty much say the same thing with Max Brand and Zane Grey
Mhm,
and some of the other writers. And if you read enough Louis L'Amour, you will see that some of his books he was doing things and trying things. And in some of his books, he was like, I need to get another book out.
mhm,
And so you if you read enough of them, you see the same beats over and over, and you start to see them at approximately the same time in the story. And there is not a thing wrong with that.
mhm,
That is classic pulp writing. It's classic pulp writing. And that's how he came up. He came up through the pulps. He came up he was writing, stories about sailors and boxers and because he had had a colorful life. Go look at Wikipedia and look at this man's colorful life. It was amazing. Um, so there is a little bit of influence in there.
mhm,
What I mostly am thankful for him and other early Western writers for is keeping the terminology alive,
mhm,
keeping the words people used and the way they talked alive.
mhm,
Um, for writers who came behind us, so you can have that grounding if you read, if you read Louis, if you read Zane Grey, if you read Max Brand, if you read some of the early Elmore Leonard westerns. You can keep that. It sounds like I'm very deeply in the westerns, and I guess I am on some levels. I do other things, but my grandfather had all these books, is the
mhm,
thing, and so he was deeply uh, into that sort of stuff, into the kind of the pulp men's stuff,
mhm.
so stories. So I read a lot of westerns early on. I read a lot of spy thrillers because
Oh, mhm.
I was born in the '60s, and so that's when spy thrillers were big, and all those books came down to me. I was reading way above my weight classes as a kid early on. Um, and I lived in this little town. Like I said, it was tiny. How tiny was it? It was 75 people in a 4 mile radius. And and so the little general community store had like a little used book section in the very back of the store where it was no lighting and pitch black. And you could bring in books and trade and he
Wow.
would give you store credit. So that's like he was had like a little mini bookstore in the back. And so I read everything. Um, but gosh, does that answer? I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it has explained how it's influenced your writing. That's very cute, though. Do you know if the store is still around?
No. There's a photograph on my website of me standing on the foundation of the store. It burned down in the '90s. It was a it was like one of these really old classic, like long false front. It looked
Mhm.
like something from the Old West. Um, and it is long gone,
Oh,
sadly.
that's sad.
And so much of that little town is long
Oh.
gone. But you know, it did form, what I did. But yeah, I went from, gosh, I I read everything I could grab when I was a
Mm.
kid. You live out there like that, and so I went from Richard Adams's, Plague Dogs as I think I was 12, 10 or 12, which is a pretty heavy read
Mm.
for a 12-year-old. Okay, let's see. This would have been 1979, so 13. Um, to a horror novel called The Haven by Graham Tynan, which just came back in print recently, and it's because, well, they had a dog on the cover, and my mother left it laying around because she was a voracious reader
Mhm.
as well, and I just picked it up, and on some levels it was your bog standard classic fantasy tale of people trying to get to the MacGuffin to save the world, blah blah blah. except it was set very much in an analog world like ours, and dogs were our enemies at
Mm.
that point. We were intelligent. Um, so, and it's a great old horror novel, and it's back in print. And I don't remember it disappeared for a long time, but
Mm.
yeah. So yeah, that was sort of like I would read anything. I would read the back of shampoo bottles. Whatever. It didn't matter. This 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 salesman came through, and he was selling these. I can't remember which company it was, but they were like compound encyclopedias, and they were huge. They were like massive, one giant book. Not the whole encyclopedia set, which is all in the thing.
Mhm.
And and my grandparents and my mother popped for that because they knew it would keep me busy. They were correct.
Brilliant.
It kept me busy for a long time. So yeah,
That's very cute.
yeah.
I love that very much. So I usually ask every guest these last two questions before the end of the show. And the first one I'm going to go with is, what does success look like to you as a writer?
Whew, okay. Yeah, this is an ever changing thing,
Mm.
and so I've been doing this long enough, and I'm at the point in my career where if I was going to get hit by lightning and be a bestseller,
Mhm.
on the epic level of bestseller, that probably would have already
Mm.
happened. I when the question gets asked, there's always one in the crowd who is like, "How did Stephen King become so successful? How did blah 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 become so successful?" And in my canned speeches is like, so here, this is a pyramid, and here's the world, okay,
Mhm.
and here's the people who want to write, and here's the people who actually write, and here's the people who finish what they wrote, and here's the people who now write something else, and here's the people who polish it and edit it and blah blah blah, and here's the people who send it out for submission, and then here's the people who get accepted, and they keep writing, because they get this rejection and they quit, off, they fall off. And then
Mm.
at the very top of this pyramid is the wheel of fortune, and that's where you get hit by lightning. So you do all the work, going up the pyramid, as it were. Um, and I know if I was going to get hit by lightning, I probably would have got hit by lightning by
Mm.
now.
Yeah.
A lot of my peers have looked at my career. Some of them did get hit by lightning, and
Mhm.
are like, "I don't understand why, why you're not a bigger deal than you are." And I'm like, "It is. It's just what it is. It's luck of the draw." So,
Yeah.
so, so success to me is constantly morphing and changing. Basically, if I make enough money as an artist to continue to have an art career, to not have to say I can't keep doing this because it takes too much time, and I
Mm.
should be doing something more useful, like digging ditches in Alaska with a spork, or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, as long as it continues to feed, like I'm gonna probably this year put out a short story collection.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a bunch of my stories that take place on trains, planes, automobiles, spaceships, whatever, ships in transit. And as long as I can continue to fund those sort of projects, um, and I can continue to occasionally fun doing a storytelling show, for example, on stage and
Mhm.
that sort of thing, then it's a success. That's a success. All the, I mean, all the other stuff is also great too. I love when strangers come up to me. It happens. It happened once at a roadside stop in Wisconsin. Somebody was like, "Hey, you're Michael Merriam." I'm like, "Do I owe you money? What? You know? Hi, who are you? Do I owe you money? Did I take out a loan and not realize it?" But but I enjoy that. That's great, and I enjoy that. And I've been the guest of honor at a couple of regional science fiction conventions, and it was lovely. I had a lovely time.
Mhm.
And so those are sort of the levels of success. If I mean, you can define success if you want to by being published by a big 4.5 publisher and getting the giant advance and
Mhm.
and and all that stuff, and you're probably going to get your heart broken
Mm.
because it just doesn't happen that often anymore. So this getting to do stuff like this, is a measure of, I literally keep a scrapbook in my office. So when I'm feeling down about my career, I
Hmm.
can open it up and I can go, oh, this is when I finaled for this award.
Hmm.
Oh, this is when, my unproduced screenplay was judged at this festival and they were like, this is fantastic. And I'm like, produce it. And then they didn't. This is when I was, guest of honor at this convention,
Hmm.
et cetera, all down through my career. Here's all the readings I've done, et cetera, et
Hmm.
cetera. And so to remind myself that it is a successful career, and
Hmm.
other people are going to define success however they want. But but that's how kind of I define it. Do I keep do I get to keep I can talk. Do I get to keep telling lies professionally for a living? So yes, fantastic.
Well, I'm glad that you've been able to find such immense satisfaction from what you do, because
Mhm.
it would be a bit crappy if you didn't, because you've been able to produce so many different things. So it's very cool that you have found something that you love and you've been doing it for such a long time and you want to keep doing it, and
Yeah, I want to keep
you seem to have plenty of fuel probably to last your lifetime. So
I'm gonna dive face down on a keyboard with stuff undone. They're
oh,
gonna find me, and there's gonna be a Word document open that's just gonna be letters because my head is on the keyboard, and they can bury me with the darn thing or cremate me with it or whatever.
well, I hope for your sake that that happens. Because what a way
Not
to go!
tomorrow. Oh my gosh.
It'll be
Yeah.
like a murder mystery, but I hope that it doesn't happen for a very long time. Um, we have a couple of other questions
Sure.
before I ask my final one. I'll do that at the end.
Sure.
So Rod has asked, what, if any, is the most exciting work in progress that you're currently working on?
I am working on a Pony Express story. I am working on a story with a transgender, I can say words, Pony Express writer.
Mhm.
Um, and again, it's a weird Western.
Mhm.
So it's all, it's horror all the way down. I was at a convention with my publisher and somebody asked me, what do you write? And I said, well, I do, I write science fiction, I write some urban fantasy and blah, blah. My publisher leaned over and said, sweetie, you're a horror writer. And I'm like, oh, oh, I didn't even intend to be. But so that's what I'm working on. That's one of the things I'm working on. I'm
Mhm.
working on this Pony Express story because 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 my grandfather's grandfather was a Pony Express writer.
Mhm.
Um, at like 17 years old, he went out west to do this and make a lot of money and come back to Illinois and buy a farm in Illinois. And so I'm kind of trying to, homage to that a little bit. And I've got, I just finished a short screenplay. It's a little paranormal romance.
Mhm.
It's set in a coffee shop, all one set, so it would be easy to shoot. And
Mhm.
if I can't find somebody to shoot it, it's a 12-minute script. I might just end up trying to write a grant and get some money and
Mhm.
shoot the darn thing. So I don't want to do that. I want somebody else to do it. I am lazy, frankly.
Fair.
And it sounds like a lot of work.
Mhm. It
But
does.
then indie publishing the book is a lot of work. I found out, oh my God, it's so much work. But I'm working on that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I just finished a one-person storytelling show called A Life Paranormal with a whole bunch of mostly true tales
Mhm.
about paranormal things that I have run into in the course of my life.
Mhm.
I am one of the people you come to if you want to talk about cryptids, especially weird cryptids that maybe other people haven't heard about. So you just
Oh,
learn something right there.
that's
So
exciting.
yeah,
Well, if I ever need to know about cryptids, then I will come to you.
yeah, yeah.
Unrelated, but Stephanie loves the art behind you on the wall.
So this is a poster. It's starting to fade pretty bad. We're going to try to replace it,
Mm.
and it's as you can see, it's pretty much an all-woman 1920s speakeasy, is
That's
what it
really
is.
cool.
And I don't actually. I think it was used as art in like a live action role play game that one of our friends was in.
Oh.
And my wife saw that and she's like, that must be mine.
I love that.
And here it is. And unfortunately, because it's the sun porch, it is getting sun bleached. But there are still prints of it out there available. So
Mm, awesome.
yeah.
Nice. Um, Rod's definition of writer success is do what you love and be remembered for it for years to come.
You
That's
know, that's part of, I think that's part of why we create art.
mm,
Um, for the most part, you live your life, and 100 years after you're dead, nobody remembers who you are,
mhm,
um, unless you have left something.
mhm,
And for a lot of people, that's their descendants, frankly. But for other people, you know, I, I think all of us who work in art, no matter what kind of art, whether it's writing or music or this back here behind me, we all hope that we at least get to create one thing of surpassing beauty that really, really outlasts us.
mm,
Like, like I think we all secretly hope that in our heart of hearts. We know that it's a long shot.
mhm.
We know that most of our work will disappear 20 years after we're dead.
Yeah.
Um, but we all hope that we do write that one thing, create that one thing, do that one thing at least that people will remember you for. So
Mhm. Yeah, I think most of us want some sort of legacy, but then some people just want to disappear into the dirt and never,
there are days
never.
where I just want to vanish into the forest and become the horrible thing the villagers talk about,
Yeah,
you know? So,
yeah. Sometimes it depends on the day. Depends if I've got how much stuff I have to do. Sometimes I think I just
right.
become one with the dirt. I don't want to do
How is
anything
my
else.
day job going? How
Yeah.
is my day job going? It's not going well. I could just go walk right into the Mississippi River and float all the
Please
way
don't
from
do that.
overflow.
Don't do that. You've got works in progress.
And I'm a terrible swimmer, so
Oh, then definitely don't do that.
yeah,
Um, so the SSBA readers loved your book very much.
yeah. I'm so
Super.
happy about that too. Yeah,
Um, and also the steampunk virtual book chat also loved reading it as well.
I talked with them last year, which seems like 1,000 years ago now, but I
Mhm,
know it was just last summer, and we talked specifically about this book, and it was a
mhm,
lovely, lovely time. So if you're an author and you have written something in steampunk or even steampunk adjacent, which I would
mhm,
say Terror is more steampunk adjacent, there is some mechanical stuff in there that does go on. If they reach out to you, if that virtual book club chat people reach out to you, you should absolutely do it. They're incredibly lovely. They were incredibly kind to me,
mhm.
and I made great friends from it. Some of whom I have got to meet in person at Worldcon in Seattle last year, and I had a lovely time. So,
Oh, that's nice. That's very wholesome. Um, oh, Sarah asked, "What's your favorite cryptid?"
okay, here we go.
You're only allowed to
So,
pick one, so choose
okay,
wisely.
okay. There are some that I like better than others.
Mhm.
Probably, I'm gonna tell you my two favorites.
Okay, fine.
One one is a cryptid called the squonk, and the squonk is from Pennsylvania, and the squonk is so incredibly ugly that it hides and cries because it's so incredibly ugly. So if you hear hiding and I just want to find it and cuddle it and tell it it's going to be okay. Yes, you're wrinkly and ugly looking and gross, but you're still valuable and we love you. But I am deeply into jackalopes right now, even though
Mm.
jackalopes are absolutely a constructed mess. So like, I can point to the moment, but I adore them. So
Aw,
so they're my favorites.
that's nice. Well, whilst I ask my last question, if anybody has any other questions for Michael, now's the time. Put them in the chat. I have a new camera. I don't know where to look, so I'm like looking frantically around all the places. Um, if you could give one piece of advice to writers that you wish you'd have known all those years ago when you first submitted your haiku for that competition for publication, what advice would you give?
Um, I would tell people um, pay attention in your high school English classes because you're going to need that stuff. Yes, you just want to get to the literary module so that you can read Romeo and Juliet yet again for the 14th time, it seems like, but you actually are going to need that technical stuff. oh my God, you're going to need that technical stuff. Because I had to go back and teach myself that technical stuff.
Mm.
Drunken White became my buddy for the longest time. And I still need really, really good editors to help me. As storytelling, I'm really good at the technical stuff. I still sometimes fall down, to be perfectly blunt.
Hmm.
So that is absolutely one thing I would tell uh, young writers. And the other thing I tell young writers is that you have to be resilient.
Mm.
Um, especially if you're going the path of commercial publication, first say indie
Hmm.
or even small press, but if you're going the path of commercial publication, you have to be resilient. The rejections are hard and they get you down and they wear on you. And I've had stories that were rejected 20 some odd times and that all gets wiped away
Mm.
the moment you sell it. It's gone. It's done. I wrote a number on a chalkboard years ago. We were talking about rejections. And
Mm.
this is when I was primarily a short story writer and I was really cranking out stories and sending them out. And I wrote the number of sales that I had at that point up on this chalkboard, which was probably about 20, 25. And I
Mm.
wrote the number of rejections that I had at that point as a writer, which was closing in on 800. And there was a gasp.
Mm.
Yeah, there was an absolute gasp. And I'm like, no, that's the game. It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
You, you, the trick is to be a good enough storyteller and a good enough writer and to follow the guidelines and to learn the technical stuff to get you at the top 10% of the slush pile.
Hmm.
That's it. That's it. And that's where you can win. Now you're at the point where you can win the game.
Hmm.
So, so be resilient. Like Karen J. Fowler has a quote that I used to keep on my desk, and it was from an interview. And she said to the interviewer, they were talking to her about her writing group she was in and how she had become very successful. And the rest of her group had some sales and stuff, but they hadn't, reached the level she had. And she said, I didn't get it because I was the best writer in my group, or because I was the most talented writer, or because I had the most to say. I got here because I was the toughest, because I
Mm.
could take the rejection. I could deal with the fact that this sometimes is a really hard business to be in
Hmm.
and keep going and keep picking yourself up every day, and go back to the keyboard and write the next thing. So,
Excellent. That's fantastic advice. One last thought from Sarah because she can't help it. Um, does the womble count as a cryptid? I've seen wombles with my two eyes, Sarah.
I think Wombles count as cryptids. I do.
Do
Yeah.
you? Why?
I think because they could really exist. Like you said, you've seen them with your own two eyes.
Mm,
So lots of people have seen Bigfoot with their own two eyes. Lots
that's
of people have
true.
seen the Michigan Dog Man with their own two eyes. I have a Michigan Dog Man story. So it's yeah.
Well, fair enough. Well, that was our final thought. Wombles do count
Wombles.
as cryptids. Cryptids. Sarah, I'm going to task you for writing the Wikipedia page for our Wombles and
Wombles.
cryptids. I think that's a good place to end this.
We went all over the place, and I love it. And so here we are. Here we are.
Well, thank you so much. Oh, excellent. Sarah's very grateful for you agreeing because I assume that was her place on the matter.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
You never know. You never know when these things happen because somebody might like to, no, they're absolutely not decrypted. They're a part of the Fey world or whatever. I'm like, maybe
oh
they're.
yeah. God,
Oh,
that'd be an awful conversation, honestly. This has been so much fun. I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you to everyone that joined us, whatever point you joined us. If you're watching the recording, thank you so much for watching the recording. I don't know where I'm looking. I'm just going to look at you instead, Michael.
you're fine. You're fine. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But no, this has been so much fun. I've really enjoyed getting to know you, and I really hope that if you are watching this, that you'll go check out Michael's work. I will put the link to his website in the description of this episode. It's also on the QR code on the screen, so please do check it out. I'm going to put the outro on, and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Right.